Welcome back to X-Plane 11. Today we're going to be flying the Toliss A321 from Phoenix over to Denver. It's going to be flight level 370 today, and it's going to be about an hour and 15 minutes. Right now we're just we just pushed back from the gate, and we're lined up here on the ramp, about to taxi over to our runway, which is 25 right, and then we're using the Mirabel 1 departure over to JARPA, and then from JARPA direct to Schnapps. And then we're going to be using, I believe, the runway 26, the ILS for 26, with the T-bar 3 arrival. If we do have to go missed, because earlier the weather wasn't too great, our alternate airport is Colorado Springs, and then with a flight level of 150, with no SIDS or stars. So I've loaded up my AVS with my route over to my runway. I'm just going to taxi over there, and then I will see you guys when we're holding short of 25 right. Alright everyone, we're lined up for runway 25 right. We're going to taxi out onto the runway. An American A320 just took off a couple seconds ago, so we are going to give them a few seconds to clear off before our departure. We're going to bring landing lights on. Nose lights can go to takeoff, strobe lights can come on, runway turnoffs can also come on. I'm a little crooked from the center line. My AVS had a glitch and routed me to the wrong taxiway, so I had to turn at the last minute. So now we're just taxiing out onto the runway. We're going to line up, wait a few minutes, and then take off. Looks like winds are pretty calm right now, just judging by the windsock off there to my left. You'll see that. There it is. See? Not doing much, so it seems like it'll be pretty calm, but let's just line up here on the runway, set the parking brake, and now we're going to increase the throttles to about 50%. Let them stabilize, release the parking brake, and takeoff thrust set. Put 5 degrees pitch down on the nose until 100 knots. Lots of Southwest 737s in this airport, as it's one of their bases, it seems like, with all the amount of traffic they have here. We're pretty heavy today. V1's going to be about 145, right? 100 off the stick. Okay, we're coming up on V1 here. V1, and rotate, and on up we go. Okay, bring that nose up a little more. Alright, positive rate, gear can come up. And we're just going to hand fly our departure right now out of Phoenix. Bring that nose down just a little. Like I said, not any wind today really, so it's a pretty smooth departure. Try to get up on that cross there. There we go. That's why I love the fly-by-wire system, because you don't really have to do much in the way of corrections once the airplane's in a general configuration of wings level or even a turn and the nose at a certain angle. It'll generally stay there pretty much with very fine tuning required.
Traffic.
There's our TCAS warning. Levers have been moved over to climb as we continue to climb out of Phoenix here. Look off to our left. Lots of deserts, a lot of mountains. Grand Canyon, so Gonna bring that nose down just a little to increase our speed up to 250 knots. As we continue to hand fly ourselves out of Phoenix. I've never actually flown this flight before, so never flown into Denver. It was requested to me by one of my friends, so hopefully I can do the flight justice. And hopefully we get a glimpse of the Grand Canyon in X-plane. So we're just continuing our climb now out of Phoenix, still almost at our flap retraction speed, which is just about 210 knots. Alright, so the flaps can be retracted. Can disarm the speed brakes. And the nose pitches up a little, obviously, as it does. Alright, we're going to begin a right turn toward our next waypoint. And at 5,000 feet, I'll switch on the autopilot and let it take over. Alright, so there's 5,000. I've just switched on the autopilot. The thrust levers are at climb. Nose lights can come off. Runway turnoffs can come off. Landing lights will stay on till 10,000. Signs are still on. And airplane is clean. Engine mode selector is normal. And auto brakes are off. Alright, so we've just passed 10,000 feet, which means our landing lights can come off, our seatbelt signs can come off, and our flight attendants can begin preparing drinks and some snacks for the people in the back. And now it's just going to be a slow climb up to 18,000, and then from 18,000, I'll talk to you guys again at 37,000, which is our cruising altitude. So enjoy the scenery that is Phoenix. Alright everyone, so we're just climbing up now to 37,000 feet. We passed 18,000 feet a couple minutes ago. We've set our altimeters to standard, and we're just continuing our climb now. It's about still an hour to go, so just going to be looking at this endless expanse of beautiful desert and wait until the descent. So I'll talk to y'all again at 37,000. Alright, so we're almost at 37,000 feet. I was just reviewing the weather data for Denver, and we've actually had to make a slight change. So instead of the runway they gave us before, which was 26, we will now be using the ILS for runway 34, because winds are at 340 degrees at 19 knots, so we'll land into the wind as opposed to having a crosswind. So you can see our top of climb marker here on my navigational display, and we extend the range to 160. You can see JARPA at 320. We still can't see our top of descent, but since we're almost at our cruise again, we're just gonna sit and enjoy this beautiful, vast expanse of desert, and we'll check back closer to our descent. So as we're cruising at 37,000 feet, I've already went ahead and set my MCP for descent. So when we reach top of descent, I will push that in and we'll begin to descend down to 7,000 feet. Denver is a high altitude airport, so you see here, all the way down to 34 right. 34 right is at almost 5,500 feet, because again, it is a high mountainous airport. But nonetheless, it's still an airport. We'll still be able to land it. So again, there's really not much to do when your next waypoint is at 164 nautical miles. I mean, we're cruising quite fast, so it won't take us that long. But when you're doing longer flights, there's not a lot to do or show except for the scenery. But right now, you're kind of flying over a desert. You know, there's some mountains. Not a lot to see though out in the desert here, so we'll check back again closer to our descent. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, so as we were cruising along here on our way to Denver, we got a notification here saying autoflight fact to fault if unsuccessful. So basically what it had said was autoflight fact to fault, off then on. I did that. It said if unsuccessful, off. So now I have Fact2 switched off, and now the EKM status page is telling me that both primary flight displays are on the same FAC, and that now we can only do Cat 3 single ILS approaches, which isn't too big of an issue for me today, as I don't intend on doing a Cat 3 approach. So, however, it's just something I wanted to kind of show that can happen. I do have random system faults set, so it's nothing I force. It's all done by the Toliss A321. It will sometimes randomly throw a fault in there. It can be anything from something minor, such as that, to an engine failure. So the level of detail and realism in this aircraft is just amazing. And you know, for someone who's not a professional simmer, it did take a while for me to learn, but once I did learn it, it became a lot easier, and then I started to be able to practice on other aircraft. I will be doing some videos later on showcasing some Boeing aircraft, such as the 777-300, the 787-9. I have a few ETOPS flights planned from St. John's to Shannon, Ireland, and perhaps to London City. Those will be in the next coming weeks. I just have to find some time for that, and ETOPS flights do take a little bit more time than these regional flights because they are usually 3-4 hours minimum, depending on where your airport is. St. John's, Newfoundland to Shannon would be about 4 hours, so not too bad, but definitely a flight for another time. As I said, I'm still kind of learning the basics and the systems of the Airbus, so once I kind of get those down pat, then definitely I'll be branching out to more airplanes. If you have any comments or tips on things I maybe don't do or things you've noticed I miss, please feel free to leave a comment to let me know, as I'm always trying to learn how to be better at flying these airplanes so that I can provide better content. Alright, so I just kind of increased the range a little to 320 nautical miles, and you can see our top of descent out there. So again, I have it already programmed into the MCP to start the descent down to 7,000, which we will start it at the top of descent. I'm just going to go ahead and bring the range back down to 40 right now. We're still about 80 nautical miles from Schnapps. And then after Schnapps intersection, it will be over to the beginning waypoint of the T-bar 3 arrival. I am not going to begin to pronounce that because that just is double B-R-O. So, and then to Lifty, and then to T-bar, and then to Narc, to Elis, to Zeta, to Loop, and then the plane will begin to slow down, then to Jabata, to Bong, and then to Cord, and then from Cord we'll be down to 3-4 right in Denver. So, we're just slowly flying along now. You can see that Schnapps is now just appearing out there in the distance on our navigation page, even though our range is set to 160 nautical miles, so it's still quite far. But whatever, we will begin our descent shortly, so just sit back and relax. I have got to say, the scenery out here is beautiful. There's lots of canyons, a lot of mountains. That's the nice thing about these airports, is you get a lot of nice views of the mountains, so it makes for difficult approaches sometimes, but you know, with ILS, it'll be an easy one down. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, it seems like we're hitting a little bit of turbulence up here, but it's not too big of an issue. We will be beginning our descent soon. The top of descent is about 40 nautical miles out there. And then we're going to be heading to the BBRRO intersection. And then from there, it's our descent down into Denver. If we bring this into 10, kick this over to plan mode, we can go into our flight plan and see. So from BBRRO, it'll be to lift, and then to T-bar, and then to Narc. Then we kick that out just a little bit. You can see then we go to EOLS, and then to Zeta, and then that in a little. You can see it gets a little confusing there, but then we go to Jabat, and then that'll be over to Bone, which will line us up for the ILS for 3-4 right. So that's kind of where we are now. We're still about, look over here, sorry, that was in plan mode still. We're still about 40 nautical miles away, so check back when we begin our descent. Alright, so here we are almost at our top of descent. We are 3 nautical miles out. There it is on the PFD. So at the top of descent, we are going to push this in and begin descending down to 7,000 feet. And then we'll start slowly configuring the plane for landing. So we're at the top of descent. We push that in, and notice the McDo switches right over to descent mode. And it's all managed here, speed, altitude. It will keep any altitude constraints you have. So now that we've went ahead and begun our descent, we can turn on the seatbelt signs, let everybody know to get their butts back in the chairs. That will be arriving soon. The flight attendants know to put everything away. And now it'll just be a descent out to BBRO and to lift. And because it is a high altitude airport, it will not feel like long. There is an altitude constraint that you can see at BBRO at flight level 270, so at this intersection the plane will hold that flight level until it passes it, and then once it passes it will begin a descent down to 7,000. At 10,000 feet we will engage constraint mode and LS mode to capture the ILS, and as well to monitor any constraints there might be in the area. So while we continue our descent from 37,000 feet, I'm just going to keep monitoring the aircraft and monitor the descent. We'll check back in when we're a little lower. I have to say, the level of scenery is pretty impressive, even for X-Plane 11. I was flying on Microsoft Flight Simulator, the 2020 edition, for some time. However, I did return to X-Plane 11 mostly for the realism and just the abundance of add-on aircraft there is. For Microsoft Flight Simulator, it's kind of dry, and the Asobo aircraft, the autopilot functions are just not that great, and the payware options are just few and far between, and any of the decent aircraft models like the 777, the 57, the 67 are all just horribly recreated, just copied and pasted over just base models from the original game. So you're paying a lot of money for basically a fancy reskin, whereas the models in this game are a lot nicer, more professional. I mean, X-Plane lacks a little in graphics, however, the functionality and the realism you can't beat, and honestly, it feels like the way the aircrafts handle, it feels as if you're actually handling an aircraft. I did a test flight today in the Toliss A340-600, and it really just felt like you were flying a 4-engine quad jet. Like, just the weight behind the modeling is very impressive. So we're right now descending down to 17,000 feet. You can see the marker there. This just means there's a speed constraint in between here, so the aircraft is going to hold that. We're still in descent mode, still at 20,000. We're going to be coming down to 18,000, then at 18,000 feet we'll set to local altimeter, which is 30. Oh, there's the ATIS information for Denver. So arriving runway is 34 left, 35 right, and we're doing the 34 right. They're using that as a departing runway. However, SimBrief, when I refiled the flight plan, gave me 34 right, and since we are in the beginning stages of our descent, I'm not going to go in the McDo and change that. Any kind of live traffic interruption we get will just be whatever. I'm just going to go ahead and turn that off though, because that screen's a little annoying. Now the plane's beginning to decelerate down to about 250 knots, and then it'll start to slow down a little more as we get a little closer and a little lower. So right now we're at 19,000 feet, and in a few seconds we're just going to set the altimeter to the local pressure and keep descending. Then at 10,000 feet, all our exterior lights will come on. Right now we're going to go ahead and set auto brakes for landing, so we're going to go auto brakes low. I'm not going to mess with the spoiler just yet in case I need to use it in my descent. Flaps are good at 0 right now. Cabin signs are on. We've got plenty of fuel still. Now it's just about monitoring the instruments as we slowly descend and go on to line ourselves up with the runway in Denver. I have to say, you know, it was a little bit of a long flight for myself, but the scenery was actually quite nice, especially with that setting sun out in the distance going down below the mountains. The reflections it casts in the cockpit are just so realistic. Like, honestly, I couldn't get this in Microsoft Flight Simulator. And the fact that the planes function like to the best of their ability as their real life counterparts is honestly worth more to me in a simulator than like lots of graphics and realistic buildings, because at the end of the day, in my opinion, flying a simulator is about realism. Alright, so now my PFD is flashing at me because it wants me to set the local altimeter. It doesn't want to be in standard anymore. So we're going to pop both these guys out, put the local altimeter. There is a setting in the configuration file to sync the two altimeters. I just did not click that, and I just realized that as I was taking off that I didn't have that set. I do have it set on the A340, but I guess I don't have it on the A321 just yet, but I will definitely fix that. So as you can see, our altitude constraint went from 17,000 down to 13,000. And right here, this just tells us when the aircraft is gonna begin descending again, because it's holding this there was an altitude constraint of 17,000, and it's going to hold it until here, and then when it's going to climb down to 13,000. So while we continue our descent, I'll check back when we're at 10,000 feet. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, there is Denver. Off to our left, there is some clouds in the area, and that pop-up window is just live traffic telling me it's recognized that there is traffic in the area, and it's spawning what ADS-B information it has. So looking at my weather here, there is a ceiling at 12,000 feet, and then there's a few clouds at 11,000, and then scattered at 22. So right now we're at 16,000 feet. So as we get lower, these clouds will slowly start to dissipate. Visibility is still about 10 miles, so we're still good on that to do a visual approach, and then winds are still holding at 340 at 14 knots. So the aircraft is now descending from 17,000 down to 13,000 as it's holding all those altitude constraints. There's been a little bit of turbulence on the way down. It's been a little rocky. I can see the movement in the corner of my eye. I use XP Realistic Pro for the camera shake effects. You can get that on the xplane.org store. It's honestly a great feature to have. It just makes the plane just come to life. You know, when you take off, it shakes, and you can feel the shake and see the vibration of like flaps and slats retracting, and you can hear the wheels spinning when you bring up the gear. So it just adds a whole lot more realism and life to the cockpit of the aircraft. So now we're just passing through 14,000 on our way down to 13,000. And then the aircraft's gonna start slowing itself down here soon. We might help it a little. Actually, it doesn't need it. It's already starting to decel. So when it starts to decel, we're gonna throw out a notch of flaps. So the VFE for flaps 1 is 238. So at about that, we'll throw out flaps 1 just to help slow the aircraft down. We are gonna arm the ground spoilers now. The flight attendants have been notified. And we're just going down now to our altitude constraint of 13,000 feet. And yeah, you can see the winds really kind of kicking the plane around, so kind of turbulent. There is some clouds, so it's to be expected, but we are landing into the wind today, so we won't have to deal with a crosswind on landing, which I don't know about you guys, but I really hate crosswind landings. I really haven't figured out the crab technique yet, so I feel once that technique is mastered, perhaps I'll be better and enjoy crosswind landings, but for now I prefer landings that do not have a lot of wind, where I do not have to try and manipulate the rudder and the side stick at the same time with the roll and the pitch. Only because for my rudder I do use the twist feature on the side stick. I do not have rudder pedals yet, so it does make it somewhat of a challenge. So as you can see now, we're descending down to 11,000 where our next constraint is, and then from 11,000 we'll begin descending down more, and then at 10,000 our lights will come on, and again we'll arm the constraint mode for our navigational display, and we'll arm the LS buttons for the ILS approach. We could also arm the lock buttons now, just so it can intercept the glide slope, or we can wait and hit the approach button. For me, I really don't know the difference. I personally just wait till I'm lined up on final with the runway at 3,000, and then I'll usually arm approach. And then once everything's lined up, I'll usually disconnect the autopilot and hand fly the aircraft down. Again, I'm working mostly on my visual approaches because anyone can set up autopilot and auto land, but I definitely want to work on my hand flying. So now that we're decelling, we're going to kick out our flaps 1 notch. You can see down there on the speed tape it wanted slats out lower, but I want to start kind of slowing the airplane down as we're bringing in for approach here. There's our TCAS warning. Again, live traffic will also show up here on your aircraft's TCAS warning system. So I believe he's 100 feet above us. I think that's what the +1 or 1,000. I cannot remember. Please, someone, if you have the answer, do tell me. So now, as you can see, there's another little blue arrow there. That's just telling us that the aircraft is holding and will be at 11,000 and will begin its descent down to the final 7,000 once we are once we're closer to that arrow. Sorry about that. I will say this is one of the frustrating things about live traffic 2 is it constantly is kicking up my TCAS alert system, which I mean is very realistic, but it does get annoying. I could turn off live traffic, but then it defeats the purpose of installing it, and I will say it somewhat is a hassle to install, but once you get it installed and working, it is just a very, very nice plugin to have. So, as you can see there, our plane already has VREF in there for us, so we're still slowly bringing it down. The aircraft's put itself into ignition, which is what you do on approach in case one of your engines fail. I'm gonna engage lock mode now and intercept the ILS. I believe we did put that in there. Perfect. So I like to input my approach data before I get, usually even before I get off the ground. Let me just double check everything, make sure I have everything I am going to need for my approach. It looks, you know what, we can probably kick out a little bit more flap here, slow her down a little more. So we are expecting 3-4 right, so the ILS for 3-4 right. Let me just load it up here, sorry. Doesn't seem to want to work for me. Sorry about that, folks. Just have to... For some reason, AVS just loves to log you out of Navigraph. And for some reason it does not want to work, so it's always fun when this happens. I just wanted to double check my, there we go. Now it's working for some reason. Okay. And now a bunch of stuff's opening. So, the ILS 434 right. We just want to make sure we have the... Let me just... Oh. Sorry about that, guys. ILS are locked. 34 right. There we go. I clicked the wrong one. Okay. So, final approach course. Make sure that's set. 353. Make sure the correct frequency is in there. I do apologize for all that, guys. I was having some issues getting my AVS system to work. So now we're going to flaps down again. There's lock. And I did forget to turn all my lights on. I do apologize. I was experiencing some issues with my AVS system. Again, it's honestly worth the headache if you do want to purchase it. I redeemed points for it on the store from my aircraft purchases. But, you know, I don't remember how much it was. I think it was like $12 Canadian. I could be wrong. It was, again, I redeemed it with points, so I didn't use money. But again, if you can afford it, or if you have the points to redeem it, I highly, highly recommend getting it. So right now we're just still beginning our approach into Denver here. And airplane is behaving nicely. We're at flaps 3 right now. I'm not going to dump out full flaps yet until we are on our final intercept to the runway. I'm going to arm approach now. So, you know, constraint mode. And I did forget to arm the LSs because of all that stuff I was dealing with earlier with the ABS system, and I do apologize for that. Gears are going to come down, flaps are going to go full. 2,500. I'm going to let it adjust itself. Alright, so now we are lined up with runway 34 right in Denver, and we are going to be landing shortly, folks. So, spoilers are armed. We have auto brake set to low, and we are going to ding the cabin, let them know what's going on, and we are going to take control, so my airplane. Off comes the autopilot, and just shut that up as we fly on down to Denver. It looks really pretty with all those lights. I don't have a scenery pack installed yet for Denver, but I'm going to look for one. I do have scenery packs for Toronto, Vancouver. I believe I have one for Washington, D.C. as well, and for LAX. The next video I plan on doing is a flight from Calgary over to YVR in Vancouver. So make sure you go check that out when it posts. I'll put up a notification before it posts. I'll be posting a few more videos this week, so this will be my second I post today, most likely. Just trying to fill my channel with some content. I'm not just going to be doing X-Plane. I will be doing some other games. I'm going to be playing Ready or Not. Maybe we'll play some Skyrim. Maybe LSPDFR. I have been having some issues getting that working, but we'll definitely try. Okay, so now we're on final approach. 1,000 feet call out for the runway. And now we're just going to fly her down into Denver. Hopefully, I mean, so far it looks good. Live traffic hasn't spawned anyone on top of me. We've deviated a little from the ILS, or from the center line, but again, I'm definitely not a professional. I am still learning, so there will be room for improvement, but you know what? It's not the worst landing I've done. I will tell y'all that. Well, any landing you can walk away from, you know, they say is a good one, so. A little high, so we're just going to dip that nose down a little. Don't want to trick, or don't want to trip the sink rate.
100 above.
Alright, there's the 100 call out, 300.
Minimum.
Minimums. Alright, and there's the localizer, and we're a little high now. Really is floating now.
50,
Flare.
30, 20, retard, 10.
And down we go. Fly that nose wheel down. Reversers come out. Alright, 80 knots, reversers can go in. Switch to manual braking. Alright, we can clean up the aircraft. Ground spoilers are disarmed. And what we're going to do now is we're going to open AVS, go to airports, and we're going to type in KDEN for Denver. And we're just going to hit search, and then what it's going to show us is basically all the taxiways. So what we'll do is we can create a route. So we'll do from here all the way down to here. And you know what? Just for the sake of it, we'll just park in what I believe is the cargo area or the general aviation, I'm not sure. But now what it does is show in the magenta line your route to your taxiway. So now we're just going to taxi on over to parking, shut the aircraft down, and park up for the night. Hope you guys enjoyed the flight. If you want to see more videos, don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, comment, and we'll see you in the next video.